The hidden strength in embracing vulnerability. Deep in a remote village, nestled between towering mountains, lived a man known for his unshakable strength. The villagers spoke of him in awe, an immovable force, impervious to any storm, with a silence that commanded respect. His name was Liang. To the people of the village, he was more than a man. He was a symbol of endurance, someone who never showed weakness, who never wavered, no matter the circumstances. But as winter's harsh winds howled through the narrow streets, everything shifted. The storm that came wasn't just weather. It was a storm that would crack the very foundation of Liang's strength. One evening, as the snow piled up higher than the rooftops, Liang stood alone at the edge of his village, his gaze fixed on the empty house that once echoed with laughter. His wife, Mei, was gone, leaving behind nothing but silence. The walls that had once held their shared dreams now stood cold and desolate, and there, beneath the weight of the bitter winds, a far heavier burden settled within him: grief. For the first time in years, Liang allowed himself to feel it, to let the emotions he had buried for so long flood over him like a dam breaking. The stoic warrior who had long hidden his pain behind an impenetrable mask finally let the tears fall. He let his raw, unfiltered sorrow spill out without resistance. The villagers who witnessed this moment froze in disbelief. They had never seen him like this. The man who had always held it together, who had been the epitome of strength, was now crumbling before their eyes. They thought it was a moment of weakness. But what they didn't understand was that with every tear, every bit of vulnerability he allowed himself to express, he wasn't breaking. He was becoming stronger than he had ever been. Here's the twist. The strength they admired in him wasn't born from hiding his emotions. It wasn't built from the walls he'd put up to keep the pain at bay. True strength, it turned out, came from his willingness to face the very thing he'd feared most: his own vulnerability. By embracing the grief, by allowing himself to feel, he had unlocked a power that could never be taken away. What if I told you that this lesson, this hidden power, could change the way you see vulnerability forever? What if embracing the very thing we've been taught to avoid is the key to unlocking our deepest strength? The truth behind this shift will surprise you. Stick with me and you'll understand why vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's the ultimate form of courage. Liang had always been the pillar of his village. The people respected him, revered him, even feared him in a way. But they never knew the real Liang. No one saw the cracks that hid beneath the surface, because Liang had perfected the art of masking them. The village itself was isolated from the rest of the world, wrapped in a blanket of harsh winters and steeped in a culture where survival meant never showing any sign of weakness. There was an unspoken rule in the village. Showing emotion, any emotion, was dangerous. Vulnerability was seen as a flaw, a weakness that could be exploited. It was a place where only the strong survived. And to survive, you had to bury everything inside. Liang's wife, Mei, had been the only person who truly knew him. In their youth, they had shared a warmth that filled their home with laughter. But then, Mei grew ill. It was a slow, agonizing decline that took everything from her, piece by piece, until all that remained was the shell of the woman he once loved. Liang watched helplessly as she withered away, and in his helplessness, he buried the grief even deeper. He never let it show. He couldn't. It wasn't just for the village, it was for himself. He needed to believe that the man who had conquered every obstacle, who had outlasted every storm, could somehow overcome this too. But when she passed, something inside him shattered. The pain he had hidden for so long festered like an untreated wound, gnawing at him in the silence of his home. He kept it hidden from the villagers, kept it buried behind a mask of stoicism, but it was there, quietly, steadily breaking him apart. And so every morning as he stood in the empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of memories, something cracked a little more. But Liang would never admit it to anyone, not even to himself. The cracks were widening, and no amount of strength, no amount of endurance could hold them together forever. But in that storm, that night of vulnerability, something shifted within him. In the cold of winter, amidst the howling winds, Liang discovered the one thing that had eluded him his entire life: the strength that comes from embracing your vulnerability. It wasn't until that winter, the cruelest the village had seen in generations, that everything changed. The storm arrived without warning. a monstrous force that blanketed the land in a thick, suffocating sheet of white. On the third night, as the winds screamed so violently that even the tallest trees trembled, Liang found himself standing alone at the edge of the village. His eyes were locked on the house that had once been full of life, full of May. The wind whipped through him, a brutal reminder of the cold biting through his clothes, stealing the very warmth from his bones. He didn't move. He stood frozen, staring at the place where his love had once lived, where laughter had once filled the air. Now it was empty. The walls were as hollow as the life he had lost, and in that silence, the weight of his grief fell over him like a heavy, unrelenting blanket. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel it. He didn't push it away or hide from it. He let the raw emotions spill out, tears rolling down his weathered face. The grief that had been buried so deep for so long came crashing forward, uncontrolled, impossible to stop. His shoulders trembled, his chest heaved, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the strong, unbreakable man the village had always known. But then something happened. As the tears fell and the grief consumed him, he felt a strange, unexpected sense of relief. It wasn't weakness, as he had feared. No, it was something different. It was the release of a burden he had carried alone for far too long. And in that moment of surrender, something shifted within him. He found a strength he had never known before, one born not from the power to hide pain, but from the courage to face it. The villagers who had witnessed this moment were left speechless. They had never seen Liang like this before. Vulnerable, exposed, human. The man who had always held his emotions behind an impenetrable wall was now standing before them, a broken shell of his former self. But instead of seeing weakness, they saw something more profound: courage. The courage to allow himself to feel, to be vulnerable. And in that, they realized, was a strength far more powerful than anything they had ever witnessed. From that day on, Liang was no longer just the man who could withstand any storm. He had become something more, a symbol of the true power found in vulnerability. His transformation was not just a personal one. It rippled through the entire village. Slowly, people began to let go of their own guarded walls. They stopped hiding their pain in silence, stopped pretending to be invincible. They started to speak about their struggles, their grief, their fears, and in doing so, they found a new kind of strength, a strength that didn't come from repression, but from the freedom of being open, of sharing their truth. Liang, once known for his unshakable resilience, became a legend, not for the battles he had fought or the walls he had built, but for the courage he had shown in embracing his vulnerability. It was a courage that gave him access to a strength that could never be taken from him, a strength far greater than any physical might. So here's the question: what if the power you've been searching for has always been inside you, waiting for you to embrace it? Could vulnerability, the very thing we've been taught to hide, be the key to unlocking the deepest strength you have within? I want you to think about this. What if true strength isn't about putting up walls or hiding your emotions? What if it's about having the courage to be real, to be raw, to let go, and simply be human? What do you think? Is embracing vulnerability the secret to unlocking your true strength? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's a hidden strength in embracing vulnerability, and it's something we all need to discover. Stay tuned, because I'll be sharing more untold truths that could change your life.